Hello, welcome everyone. I am Michela and I'm here with Daniel Simpson to introduce you to our retreat we are doing together next year in 2024 from the 3rd to the 7th of July. And I'm here to introduce you, Daniel, but also to talk a bit about myself. So I own and I teach in my little own retreat center in the southern part of Switzerland. We are just a couple of kilometers from the Italian border. And we have a very nice setting in nature. We are at 600 meters height, and this is a perfect place to spend some nourishing time in nature, studying and practicing yoga. And the retreat we are doing together next year is about yoga history, yoga philosophy, but also yoga practice. So it's a nice combination of things that we believe is quite something unique and special, especially for someone who is interested in deepening other aspects than just the yoga practice. I teach since more than 10 years, and I manage this retreat center called Casa Corvo since approximately 7 years now. So let's see if Daniel can tell us a little bit about himself and what his background is, so you get to know him better a little bit.
Yeah, gladly. I am a writer in some ways. I'm the author of this book, The Truth of Yoga, which really lays out an overview of yoga history and philosophy, which is mainly what I've been teaching around the amount of time that you've had Casa Corvo. I started out, like many yoga teachers, teaching postural practice. That's been something I've been doing for more than 20 years now. But I've got more and more interested in where yoga came from, what it was for traditionally, and how that relates to living a normal life. Because for me, yoga is now a way of seeing, a way of being, and it is my life to a certain extent. And it's become less and less about what I do on a yoga mat. And so I'm increasingly keen to show how the traditional ideas that have influenced yoga practice are still relevant today, even if they don't talk directly about some of the things that we do on a yoga mat, because a lot of what we do on a yoga mat is actually relatively recent. It's been invented in certainly the last 100 years. I think a lot of ideas about coming together in groups to practice the way that we do, but that doesn't mean it's inauthentic. It means actually it's a reminder that yoga keeps changing, and we're part of that change. So what we do in our practice has to find a way of relating to what has been yoga in the past. Otherwise, why are we even calling it yoga? But at the same time, we are free to innovate, and at every stage in yoga history, things have changed. People rip the whole script up and start again at a completely different position. So it's just helpful to be reminded of that, but also to keep coming back to how that relates to what we do in our practice, and then how our practice relates to our lives.
Thank you very much. That's very nice. I wanted to add that I met Daniel because myself, I'm also very interested in those topics, exactly as you pointed them out. And I started first reading your book and then following your online courses. And I found them very helpful for us as teachers, as practitioners to bring things into perspective and still not feel that we're doing something completely wrong, but really that we are somehow still, or we have the possibility still to do, to include things in our teachings and our practice that have something that is connected to the more traditional ideas. So about the retreat, what would someone who's attending this retreat expect from the retreat? From my side, just say about that part, I will be teaching the practices in the morning. So we will start every morning with a 2-hour practice that includes breath, meditation, and asana. So posture, breathing, and meditation. For me, especially pranayama is a very important part of my personal practice that I like to share on retreat. So that's how we start the day. What about you, Daniel? What is your part?
Well, that's, I mean, I couldn't agree more about pranayama. That was, for most of the history of yoga, the main physical practice. That's what's transformative. Making shapes feels nice, but there's a limit to how far it can take us. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how that works. I'm going to talk about how things have changed, and I'm going to tell some stories. I have an academic background to a certain extent. That's why I wrote a book. But I'm not an academic. I don't like to talk about things in dry and abstract ways. What I want to do actually is facilitate discussion with the people who are taking part in this retreat. So we'll be trying to explore, what is relevant to whoever's in the room, and trying to answer questions as much as possible. So I'll start the day after we've had a little bit to eat with a kind of presentation of some themes, and then open it up for discussion, setting a kind of inquiry for the rest of the day. In the afternoon, after we've had a little bit of a break, we'll come back and start to explore how to kind of relate that to practice, philosophically speaking, but also in terms of yoga practices. And then I will wind things down towards the end of the afternoon with a little bit of an integration of theory and practice, embodying some of what we've been talking about. So there will be a second practice session, a little bit differently structured to the one you'll be leading there, Michela. I probably won't be, I guess, guiding people through a sequence in quite the same way, but we'll maybe take the possibility of using embodied techniques to feel our way into some of the ideas, and that'll be a hopefully helpful way to integrate it all before we wind down for the evening with some reflections and things to take away and consider for the next day.
That sounds great. I would love to take the retreat.
So would I. Can I hand that bit over to you maybe, and then I can.
Yeah. It's actually, this place is also what I wanted to add is for a small group. So I'm sure precisely what you were talking about, the idea of discussion, of conversation, of sharing, will for sure play an important part or a role, because we take normally 12 up to 13 people. So it will be possible to build conversation in smaller groups, but also all together, and everyone will really feel included. I feel this is actually a very precious element of Casa Corvo, because we are small, and so we create this also intimate experience for whoever comes and attends our retreats in general. So who do you think is the target, or who do you think, for whom is this retreat we have prepared, Daniel?
Well, I've given it a fairly ambitious title, New Light on Yoga. Light on Yoga, the sort of famous yoga Bible, so to speak, of BKS Iyengar, which itself was borrowing the title from the Hatha Pradipika, which is a medieval compilation about physical yoga practice. Literally means light on Hatha, which is a Sanskrit term used for physical practices. So I guess I'm positioning myself in that process of rethinking what yoga means for a new generation in the 21st century. What's yoga all about? So it's really for anybody who's interested in that question. You don't have to be a master of all sorts of physical contortions, although I'm sure you will be inviting people to explore what their bodies can do if they're interested. But for me, the main thing is that you're interested in asking questions, and happy to contribute to conversations, really. I would like it to be as interactive as possible. I like talking, but I also like to listen. And what I love most of all is to facilitate, a group conversation, to try and help discussion be seeded so that people go away and talk to each other outside of the sessions about some of the themes we've been discussing. And that really happens when people are sharing from the heart what matters to them. What are their burning questions? Not just about yoga practice, yoga history, yoga philosophy, but about life. And then what we can do is try to use yoga philosophy as a framework for understanding how to relate to our lives. So it's really for anybody who's curious. But I guess it will appeal more perhaps to yoga teachers, because they've been thinking about these questions perhaps in their own teaching. But really, there's absolutely no requirement to be an advanced practitioner or a teacher. Just to be interested in inquiring. That's really, I think, the main prerequisite.
Yeah, same from my side. Even if the practice is 2 hours long, it will be accessible to anyone that has just basic experience, and I will be always offering options for the seated part, for the pranayama part, and for the asana, for the postures. So we are just looking forward for whoever comes and enjoys this time together. And I'm sure it's going to be a nourishing moment in the summer. So also to be in nature, to be outside, we're close to the river, and to have time to integrate and to digest, or to think about more questions that you could ask Daniel, because definitely having someone like you around is also fantastic, being a scholar, an academic, practicing, living yoga and studying yoga. I think this is a great combination.
Well, thank you, Michela. And I'm inspired to come and spend time in such a beautiful space. And it's been a real pleasure to connect online, but to have met through the internet and to therefore be organizing something, in person again, it's really nice. And it's exciting for me to come and open my mind to other people's ideas, questions, and more international perspective on what I've been doing. I've been doing that from my living room for the last few years, but it's only this year that I've started to travel again to start teaching, and I'm really excited at that possibility.
Great, then I think we can close this video, and thank you very much for listening, everyone. You find all information on my website, michelayoga.com, on the casacorvo.ch website, and on Daniel's website, which is
danielsimpson.info, info. You can find it there too. And if you have any questions, please feel free to use the contact form there to send me an email, and I'd be very happy to answer anything that arises after listening to this, or anything else that might be on your mind. So I hope you will feel inspired to come and join us. I'm looking forward to it a lot.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Michela.